This week, the Israeli Knesset dispersed and the race for the magic number of 61 has begun. Every few hours, a new poll comes out telling us how many seats each party gets and which bloc has the chance to reach 61 members, because it's the majority that is the most important factor. As we all know, majority rules. Divine Providence has it that this week's Torah portion here in the diaspora is Parasha Shelach, where we read about the story of the spies who spoke slanderously about the land of milk and honey. The children of Israel believed them and Hashem got very upset. Which leaves us wondering, what was so wrong with the fact that the Jews believed the negative report? Out of the 12 spies, 10 spies, which is an overwhelming majority, reported negatively. So why should the Jewish people not believe them? Surely the majority opinion rules. The same question can be asked about the Korach story, which is being read this week in Israel. Korach and his group have an argument with Moshe about leadership. And here too, Moshe is in the minority. Korach and his mates are an overwhelming majority against Moshe's opinion. So why were they punished? Perhaps the following story can shed a little bit of light. When Jonathan Eibeshitz was a young child, he was known throughout as a child prodigy. He was full of Torah knowledge and with wisdom way beyond his years. His name reached as far as the king, who wanted to meet him in person in the palace. But the king conditioned the visit on the fact that the child has to come to the palace alone without an accompanying adult. So on the appointed morning, his parents dressed him in the Shabbat clothes befitting royal visit, and they sent their child to the palace alone. Young Jonathan indeed made it to the palace by himself. To the king's question how he found the way, he answered simply that he asked passers-by, "What is the direction of the palace?" "And what did you do when you got conflicting answers?" asked the king. "I just followed the majority. The direction that the majority said, I knew was right." This is exactly what the king was waiting for. And he asked the little boy, "If the majority has the truth, then why do you Jews stick to the Jewish religion? Since we the Christians, we're a much greater majority." The boy smiled and answered, "Even when I was trying to find the palace, I only relied on the majority when I was far away and I was in doubt. But now that I'm inside the palace, I'm talking to the king himself. Even if the whole world tells me that the palace is somewhere else in another direction, I won't believe them, because now I have no doubts." As Jews, we've always been in the minority position, as it's written, "Ki atem ha'me'at mikol ha'amim." You are the least of all peoples. And yet we never follow the majority because we have the Torah, which is the truth, and therefore we have no doubt, concluded the young boy. We can now understand why Hashem was angry with those who believed the spies' report and with Korach and his group. Because if it's something that is clearly against Hashem, then the majority has no power, and the concept of the majority rules does not apply. You see, God is not necessarily found with the majority. And even if the majority includes great leaders, as the story of the spies, or very wise people, as the story of Korach, to the contrary, as Parasha Shelach and Parasha Korach teach us, it was the minority that wanted to do the will of God. By the way, a good place to see this concept is in the UN, where the majority seems to always see Israel in the wrong, despite the truth of Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East, trying its best to constantly do the right thing. In our personal lives too, we sometimes find ourselves in a minority position. Like when we want to take on a new mitzvah, people around us might say, "What's happening? You're getting too religious." Friends, family, and sometimes even our parents might all stand on the other side, and we're left alone by ourselves. But deep down in our hearts inside, we know that God is on our side. And then we go with our truth all the way to the end, because the majority does not always rule. Shabbat Shalom.